Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is an odd masterpiece. This movie feels like an acid trip the first time you watch it. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a very good movie. It's got a lot of things going for it, but at the same time, it's got a lot of plot issues too. So without further ado, let's get started. We're gonna get this part out of the way. Scott Pilgrim is this 22-year-old skinny kid who is dating a 17-year-old. Scott Pilgrim is a kid diddler. There's nothing more to say. We get a quick introduction of all the characters, and then we get introduced to the music they play. And the music they play in this movie kicks ass.
This mystery child you date?
Her name's Knives Chow. She's Chinese.
I love how that's his first description of Knives. She's Chinese. I'm trying to describe to you all what happens in this movie because it all happens very quickly. Scott and Knives go out for a while. They're going to the record store. They're going to the arcade. They're just having fun. And then Scott and Knives crack a pretty funny joke.
I've never even kissed a guy.
Hey. Me neither.
This is actually an inside joke between some of my friends, and I just now got it. Thanks, Nia. After walking Knives home, Scott goes to bed later that night, and he gets a weird dream of a pink-haired girl roller skating. The movie jumps around a lot, so we're gonna skip ahead to the next important scene.
Let's do that one again.
Sorry, what are we doing?
I told you like 50 times.
We're going to this party, retard.
Why does it jump around mid-conversation? That's always been a part I disliked about this movie. Scott and his band think it would be cool if they go to a party, which they end up doing. Scott ends up seeing the same pink-haired girl that he saw in his dream, and then he draws a shitty photo that identifies her immediately to everybody around. Aubrey Plaza's pretty good in this movie too. She's like, stay away from her, Scott. Scott makes a shitty Pac-Man reference to Ramona. Scott's back at his apartment with his gay friend, and he gets an email on the computer. This is coming from one of the first evil exes who is going to fight him later in the movie. And I just want to say, I did not give a shit about this email the first time I heard it. Scott didn't even care to read the email properly. Didn't even bother to listen. All of a sudden, he just showed up to fight, and I was so confused. After that, Scott goes to hang out with Knives again, where he is severely uninterested in everything she's talking about. Then it cuts back to their band, where Knives is now a crazy fan. Also, I like how in the arcade they get to a final boss, and they don't even bother to try to fight it. They're just like, I never get past this, and they just get beat. Like, what was the point of you playing the game? Why is there a P-bar in this? I get the video game thing, but the P-bar is just dumb. Scott has another weird dream where he's in a school for some reason because he likes children. And then Ramona shows up at his door to deliver a package. Scott's like, I'm not taking this package until you go out with me. And she's like, okay. And then ends up going out with him. Why is there just a random door in the middle of the park? The movie also likes to play with reality a lot, which is kind of annoying. Because I'm just sitting here, and I'm wondering, what is going on? What is real and what is not? Scott and Ramona are back at her place where Scott immediately cheats on Knives. Like, there was no hesitation from Scott. The next day, Scott gets Ramona's number and invites her to come to the Battle of the Bands later in the day. This is another detail I missed, and they do this a lot in the movie where they have small details relating to the characters. The 7 X's on the bottom signifying the 7 people that Scott is going to have to fight later in the movie. We cut to the Battle of Bands where we see their band that they're competing against is not very good. They think they're amazing, but they're kind of terrible. They also have this little Asian kid drummer who's really funny and gives them a death stare when they're off stage.
Alright, this next song goes out to the guy who keeps yelling from the balcony. It's called We Hate You, Please Die.
Sweet. Love this one.
And then just when you think this movie is starting to get normal, everything gets weird extremely quickly.
Mr. Pilgrim! It is I, Matthew Patel.
We learn shit like they can fly, no one cares about the fighting, everyone does care about the fighting. I am so lost. They begin to fight and stuff, but then Ramona has to give backstory so everybody stops and listens to her. What is going on? This movie is starting to make no sense.
Hey, what's up with his outfit?
Yeah. Is he a pirate?
Is that Howard? That sounded a lot like Howard from Big Bang Theory. And to make things even weirder, the ex just starts singing a random song. Anyway, Scott wins and he kisses Ramona on the bus. Scott later decides it's time to break up with Knives, so he calls her from a phone booth, but then she appears up behind him like a creep and makes it even more justifiable to break up with her.
I wanted to invite you over for dinner.
Like,
Chinese food?
Of course he would say something like that. It's because she's Chinese, isn't it, Scott? Anyway, Scott breaks up with Knives and she goes crazy. Then the band is practicing, but he's too focused on Ramona. He has her over for dinner. They decide to ditch being at the house so they can conveniently go to the next ex, who happens to be the best part of this movie.
And roll sound.
Ladies and gentlemen, the second ex in this movie, Chris Evans, aka Captain America, and this entire scene just kicks ass for me. Chris Evans is so good at fighting in this movie that he just has stunt doubles fight for him for a bit, and then he just grabs coffee, and then he proceeds to kick the shit out of Scott, which isn't the only time someone's gonna kick the shit out of Scott in this movie, but the way he loses is terrible.
You really think you can goad me into doing a trick like that?
There are girls watching.
Somebody get me my board.
Really? He got goaded into doing a trick? That's the way he's going to lose this? The guy who was smart enough to have 7 other people fight Scott for him is going to lose because he's arrogant? I get that he's arrogant, but I don't think he's dumb. This is the lazy way to get rid of him. I need more Chris Evans in this movie. The movie cuts back to Scott back in his apartment where he gets a call from his ex-girlfriend. Later, he is visited by Knives.
Is Scott here?
You know what? He just left.
Really?
Yeah.
The fourth ex runs up on Scott and tries to take him by surprise. Scott says he doesn't want to fight and she just leaves because I guess it doesn't matter. Scott can just deny the fight. We then cut to the coffee shop where we run into Aubrey Plaza's character again, who's censored for some reason. She's the only character in this movie that is censored. Well, I guess that's not true. I think somebody else gets censored later on. But I don't understand why they're censoring her right now. Scott gets visited by his ex at the coffee shop, who's just kind of annoying to him the whole time. The movie then will cut to Knives trying to become more like Ramona, going into a downward spiral. She ends up talking to young Neil and gets herself into the next battle. Long story short, they get invited backstage because Scott's ex has a boyfriend who is Ramona's third ex, and now they have to fight. Also, he's like Superman. I'll tell you why in a second. But yeah, he's Superman. Anyway, Scott gets his ass kicked this fight. You thought Chris Evans beating him up was bad? This guy was worse. He beat him in everything, including playing the bass. Also, I like the small detail in the alley where the friends just don't care about Scott's well-being. They're just having casual conversations with him. After losing a bass battle to the third ex, named Todd, Todd is tricked into drinking soy milk. Why is this a problem? Because the reason why he's Superman is because he's vegan. The vegan police then show up, and they strip him of his powers because that's his third offense. This sounds retarded. And then Scott beats him up with a headbutt. This is another fight where Scott definitely should have just lost. Why does Envy get censored now? What made her line so special that she needed to get censored? Scott's getting mad about all the exes Ramona has, and the fourth ex shows up and tries to fight Scott. Little does that fourth ex know that Ramona's gonna jump in to fight. Now I have a few questions. Could Ramona jump in the entire time and help Scott? She chooses to not help Scott in the remainder of these fights, but she could have helped at any point in these fights. Instead, we had to watch Scott get lucky twice. It's later revealed mid-fight that she can't die unless Scott's attacking her. Scott refuses to hit a woman, so Ramona just controls him, which begs the question on why doesn't she just do that for every fight? That's right, she orgasmed to death. Are you not entertained? After that, Scott gets mad and Ramona breaks up with him. So he's gonna use that anger in the fifth fight, which happens to be twins. So battles number 5 and 6 are both here. She shows up with a weird guy who we'll get to in a minute, but I want to talk about this fifth fight. This fifth fight is all CGI, but it doesn't mean it's not a banger. It's got really cool music in it. The visuals are really nice. This fifth fight might be my favorite fight in the whole movie. It's just amazing. After Scott inevitably destroys these two punk losers, they give him an extra life. Why did the game decide to give him an extra life at this point? Because I think it's convenience to the plot. This extra life becomes very important. It's why I'm questioning why the extra life comes in now. Ramona is with her new boyfriend, aka the 7th and most deadly ex, Gideon. Gideon, aka G-Man, is a part of a record company that signed Scott's band to a deal because they are really good apparently. I like how young Neil just turns on him instantly. Also, Ramona is stupid as a character. She's just a really odd character overall. She was not talking to Scott at the party, then she was hanging out with him, then making out with him the same day, then just breaks up with him after one argument. I don't get her motivation. After all of that, Wallace tells Scott to give up because Scott is not as good as Gideon. And then he gets a phone call from Gideon, where Gideon is basically bragging again. After that phone call, that is enough for Scott to decide to kick his ass. Scott easily walks into the club by guessing 2 passwords that are very stupid that anyone could have guessed. He angrily charges at Gideon and claims that what he's doing is for love. They begin to fight, and Scott takes out all of Gideon's henchmen. He proceeds to lose with the sword of love, and then Knives jumps out of nowhere and starts attacking Ramona.
You'll pay for what you did to him.
Listen, Kung Pao chicken.
That might be my favorite line in the movie. Kung Pao chicken. Knives ends up attacking Ramona. Scott tells Ramona the truth and gives a nice lesson on why you shouldn't be an asshole, which is something he should have done earlier. And then he gets murdered by Gideon. And then he gets another sequence of Ramona telling her backstory again. So Scott ends up using the one life that he got to come back and save Ramona. Why was it given after the twins fight? Why wasn't it given after someone like the vegan? Or maybe even for fight number 4 for a funny gag? Also, if he can just use music to keep fighting them, why doesn't he do that? He doesn't have to lift a finger. Anyway, Scott breaks into Gideon's place again by punching both guards and uses the sword of self-respect this time, which ends up working pretty well for him because he at least makes it to the next fight. Before Knives can attack Ramona again, Scott intervenes and tells Ramona and Knives the truth, to which that brings Knives back on Scott's side to help fight Gideon. If anyone else can jump in to help fight for Scott, what is the point of the game? What is stopping the bandmates from just using music to beat up Gideon? If your answer is money, they are terrible friends. Scott and Knives combo breaker Gideon and destroy him. But before Gideon dies, he says that Scott must fight himself, which they beautifully spin into something else. Scott ends up not fighting himself in a hilarious fashion, walks out with himself, and actually realizes that he is a good guy no matter what his skin color is. That's the lesson I'm taking away from that. Knives says that Scott should be with Ramona, and they try to start over, and they walk through another imaginary door, never to be seen from again. End movie. This is by far one of the strangest movies I've ever watched in my life. Everything about this movie, from the way it looks to the characters involved, everything just works for this movie. And it is awesome to see. For those of you that don't know what King of the Hill is, King of the Hill is where I rank all the movies that I've reviewed so far and basically say which one is better or which one is best. The current best movie that I have reviewed is B-Movie, and Scott Pilgrim wipes it out of the water. It is just a better story overall, and I highly recommend checking this movie out. So Scott Pilgrim is my new King of the Hill. As for my rating of this movie, it's a tough call, but honestly I gotta give it an 8. Although I really like this movie, it has a lot of glaring issues, like its pacing. Its pacing is way too fast, especially for someone who's first watching it. It also doesn't explain its rules well enough, so part of the plot is kind of messy. I think it deserves an 8. I think that's going to be the end of this video, guys. Please subscribe if you enjoyed. I have more videos coming your way. Thank you to Nia for suggesting this movie for me. If you guys want to help me figure out what movie I should do next, go to @ShepBandicoot on Instagram and be a part of my polls. Or you can send in suggestions on YouTube and I will put them in the vote on Instagram. And I think that's going to be it for this one. Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
Is Scott here?
You know what? He just left.